From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
Going in another action-packed day here, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom and making sure you have the right person shoulder to shoulder to you when it matters most. Let's get rolling. There's a lot to cover today, like every day here. 3 big things you need to know this hour. Number 1, you know how some things just don't age well? How about Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth? 20 years now since the doom and gloom documentary predicted the demise of the world. It's 9 degrees here today, right? Yeah, okay, so not so much. Number 2, home buyers have been canceling deals at a record rate in recent months, but why? Are they waiting for better interest rates, or is there something wrong? We'll talk about that. And let's take a closer look at what's happening in Minneapolis this morning, because this pseudo-military operation is being sold as a bunch of ordinary Minneapolis folks just making posters in their basements and protesting. We know that's not what is happening at all. We have to take a look at who is benefiting from the chaos, because it's not Minneapolis residents, I can tell you that. Minneapolis residents benefit from having criminals removed from their streets. They benefit from ICE's work. So there's something bigger, something greater at work here, a master plan that has these far-left agitators and anarchists working against the interests of that city. So who has something to gain from the unrest? It's the powers that be, domestic, even potentially internationally. Let's start domestically. Democrats don't want to lose their voters, because that's who many of these illegal aliens actually are, Democrat voters. Let's just be honest about that. Let's be brutally honest. Democrat politicians don't care about Alex Preddy or Renee Good. They're secretly pleased to have a martyr amplify their cause, which is protecting their voter base and their massive fraud schemes. That's why Minnesota's leaders aren't doing anything to bring down the temperature. It's why Governor Tim Walz is comparing Alex Preddy to Anne Frank. Yeah, he's done that. The revered child martyr from the Holocaust. Listen to this disgusting comment.
We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota. And there's one person who can end this now.
It's disgusting. It is disgusting to compare the Holocaust. It's offensive to Jewish people, gypsies, to those who were marginalized by the Nazi regime. There is no comparison. The only children's book that's going to be written is about Walz and what a child he is. Significant wordplay. Walz is making sure that Preddy's death serves his purposes, making sure that the public view of Preddy as a martyr is there, and that somehow the Nazi Holocaust is like radical anarchists in the streets of Minnesota attacking federal officers. And Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, no better. Still comparing ICE's presence to an invasion, saying it needs to end, which might as well be a battle cry to the agitators out there in the streets to declare war on America. Listen to this.
Are you standing up for American families right now? Or are we tearing them apart? The invasion of these heavily armed masked agents roaming around on our streets of Minneapolis, emboldened with a sense of impunity, it has to end.
Yeah, it has to end, all right. That kind of rhetoric has to end. What do these guys have to hide? Well, plenty, obviously. For starters, billions of dollars in fraud that they've allowed to be swindled away from their constituents, from the taxpayers of Minnesota, lining the coffers of Somali residents and others who have played the system and made themselves wealthy. Senate Republicans have just launched a probe this week into Minnesota's handling of that fiasco, as they should. And just recently, a convicted fraudster, the latest to claim that Walz and the state's Attorney General, Keith Ellison, were both fully aware of what was going on despite their claims to the contrary. And now Now Walls, Fry, and company have been subpoenaed by the Justice Department for potential obstruction of immigration enforcement over allegations that they have directly interfered with ICE's work for more than just the press box in the Twin Cities. And again, why are they so dead set against ICE? The reaction to Attorney General Pam Bondi's latest request might prove why. Minnesota is refusing, like some other Democrat states, to turn over its voter roll information to the Justice Department amid concerns of massive voter fraud in that state connected to all the other systemic fraud. Now, if there's nothing to hide, then why hide? If it's not far-fetched to believe that Democrats have their hands right in the middle of this unrest and may be directly involved in fanning the flames for political gain. Check this out. The Minneapolis Director of Emergency Management is Rachel Sayer, a former USAID director who has been at the center of regime change all over the world in a number of countries. And who's to say she's not attempting to be part of regime change right here in the United States? Listen to her.
My background is in international humanitarian response in conflict zones in Yemen, Haiti, Syria, Iraq, and Ukraine. What I've seen here is what I've seen there. A powerful entity violently and intentionally terrorizing people, making them afraid to go outside so they can't earn a living, so that kids are forced out of school. This has a lasting generational impact.
Yeah, this will have a generational impact, all right. Minneapolis still not recovered from the summer of Floyd. Then there's the state's second in command, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who has been accused of being an admin on one of those signal chats being used to sow chaos in Minneapolis under the pseudonym Flan Southside, an accusation that her office denies, but it wouldn't be surprising, wouldn't it, considering that she has participated and led protests in this area before other Minnesota Democrats have openly admitted their involvement in these signal chats and this operation and the coordination of attacking federal officers. Others have gone even further. Meet Minnesota State Representative Brad Tabkeep, who set out a Zoom link for those interested in participating in his ICE Watch training seminar. And what did that training seminar include? A bunch of lessons on how to impede and obstruct ICE agents, giving detailed tips about using whistles, following ICE vehicles, following the group's set hierarchy. Like I've said all along, this is not just some series of protests. It's a well-organized and well-funded uprising. It is a pseudo-military operation designed to destabilize America and distract from all the mistakes of the Democrats. These tactics are designed to disorient ICE agents, directly contribute to incidents like the unfortunate death of Alex Preddy. When you've got agitators blowing whistles, honking horns, screaming, ICE agents are facing an all-out attack on the nervous system. When protesters start physically harassing them, they don't know who's armed and who's not, so of course, someone's likely to get hurt or shot or worse. Alex Preddy's death wasn't an accident, and not because ICE targeted him or something. Alex Preddy's death was the result of these tactics that will almost always end with someone getting hurt, which is what the enemies of America want. In fact, Preddy himself had a broken rib from fighting with agents 1 week before his death. It seems he didn't learn his lesson, and now it's too late. But it's not too late for America. More on this after the break. Good morning. This is The Steve Gruber Show. By the way, I think those enemies in Minneapolis extend far beyond just the Democrats. I think there's some international powers at play here. Countries who have realized after Trump's time in Davos that they have lost control and their influence over the policies, the foreign policies, of the United States. Trump and his cabinet, those leaders spent the last week letting the rest of the world know that America is no longer interested in serving anyone else's interests except ours. I shared many of those clips with you last week. And as you can imagine, much of Europe and our own neighbors like Canada are not fans of Trump resetting everything. They're calling us out for ushering in a new world order. I don't think they want America at the top of this new world order they've talked about for so many years. It's been reshuffled. Instead, they're all about warning about America's return to the 19th century, something that my friend Susan Kokinda lays out nicely. She'll join me on the show here in the coming days. Here's part of what she posted this week. Listen.
If you listen closely, the leading British and Commonwealth voices aren't just mourning the post-war order. They're suddenly obsessed with the 19th century. NPR is reporting that Trump's America First is dragging us back to a 19th century world of spheres of influence. And the Council on Foreign Relations warns we're drifting not by accident, but by structural necessity toward a world that looks far less like the liberal universalism of 1945 and more like the balance of power order of the late 19th century. Spheres of influence, managed rivalry, and transactional diplomacy. And then enter Jeremy Corbyn of the British Labour Party. He chimed in.
What we're looking at is almost 19th century imperial powers squabbling over bits and pieces from the rest of the world.
Now ask yourself, what was Britain's greatest fear in the 19th century? That the principles of the American Revolution would spread, that the economics of the American system would create strong, prosperous, sovereign nations, leaving the imperial policies of financial control, backwardness, and depopulation in the dust. Which, by the way, is exactly what Donald Trump is doing today.
Yeah, our friends, right? Empires like Great Britain have a history of sponsoring revolutions from within rival nations to destabilize them. Now, who's to say that's not part of what's happening right now? In one of those signal chats, there's a resource file link that directs people with money to a website, Stand With Minnesota, which in turn directs donors to a campaign run by Tending the Soil on Chuffed. This campaign is hosted by Chuffed, and the first donation came from Johnny Sapatuik, a Canadian-based community organizer who's part of Chuffed leadership and specializes in fundraising. He's most likely a central figure in all of this. Why is a Canadian leading the charge for fundraising for protests in Minneapolis? Think about that for a minute. I'm telling you, foreign entities have a lot to gain from what's happening in Minnesota. There's something similar going on over in Shanghai. Listen to this.
There is a man in Shanghai, China, an American citizen. His name is Neville Roy Singham. He works with the Beijing government. He is funneling millions of dollars into the United States of America through 501s like Party for Socialism and Liberation, Democratic Socialists of America, Minnesota Immigration Rights Action Committee. There he is, okay? Connecticut-born, 71 years old, billionaire tech guy. He is funneling money here to these radical organizations who are then agitating professional people, communists mostly, because Singham's a communist, all right, to go in and foster rebellion. You heard that story reported? That is absolutely true. The man has been investigated by the FBI in the past, this Singham character, okay? This isn't some organic thing. This is a foreign power, Beijing, using this American citizen who lives openly in Shanghai in luxury, knowing that this man is funneling tens of millions, probably more, into this country to try to destroy the government.
Just keep putting the puzzle pieces together. Thank you, Bill O'Reilly, for that. The Department of War just released our national defense strategy, and let me tell you, the rest of the world doesn't like it either, especially the EU. Here are 4 things on that list that it focuses on. Number 1, defend the U.S. homeland. Deter China in the Indo-Pacific through strength, not confrontation. Increase burden sharing with U.S. allies and partners. And number 4, supercharge the U.S. defense industrial base. We are putting America first and making everyone else pick up the slack that they've been handing us for decades. Here's what it says. For too long, allies and partners have been content to let us subsidize their defense. Our political establishment reaped the credit while regular Americans paid the bill. With President Trump, there is a new approach in effect. And here's something else that new approach includes. A united front against drug trafficking in the Western Hemisphere. This is huge. It's a direct assault on the drug cartels that have propped up several nations for decades. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, is set to meet next month, February the 11th, with 34 leaders of the Western Hemisphere nations about cracking down on the cartels. And here's something that's not getting talked about. If you zoom out on British history, there's a pretty blunt truth. When drug trafficking served imperial interests, Britain didn't just tolerate it, they ran it. The clearest example is the opium trade in China in the 18th and 19th centuries. Britain wanted tea and silk. China didn't want British goods, so Britain pushed opium grown in colonial India to balance the books. When China tried to stop the flood of addiction, Britain literally went to war to protect the trade, using the Royal Navy to force open ports to legalize opium. The East India Company built an empire partly on drug revenue, and Hong Kong became a global hub for opium finance and shipping. Only later, after profits were secured and power consolidated, did Britain suddenly discover a moral opposition to narcotics and champion drug control. The point? Drugs weren't an oopsie of the empire. They were a tool, dropped only when they were no longer needed. And who's to say that the trafficking trade isn't being used once again to destabilize this great country we live in? I'm telling you, folks, we're under attack from all directions. And our new national defense strategy undermines that tactic. And the EU and the UK and others, they can't stand it. That's why they're lining up against Donald Trump. That's partly why there's chaos in Minnesota. Stay tuned. We'll have more in the days to come. Good morning. This is the Steve Gruber Show. My next guest honestly should be world famous. He should. Because Dr. Michael Hutchinson invented the NeuroGuard Plus, a mouth guard that reduces the chance of concussion over 99% of the time. Certified by Michigan State and Wayne State University. They've tested this mouth guard, certified the results. NeuroGuard Plus. Dr. Michael Hutchinson with me this morning. Sir, you should be famous. Everybody should use your mouth guard. My son's been using it playing football for years. 0 concussions. And yet, it's just not world famous yet. Why not?
Well, I just need to be on your show more, and then I'd be world famous.
We're getting there. But you've reduced concussions to the point that they almost never happen with this device. It's pretty earth-shaking, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we've been working on a long time, and actually the mouth guards that people have used is 85 years old. So try to change that kind of tradition is monumental, but we're making lots of strides, and because frankly that's how the body works. And again, like you said, 0.2% concussion rate, so there's nothing out there that can beat that.
Nothing even close. And right now it's basketball season. People don't think about concussions in basketball, but basketball concussions, especially women's basketball, doctor, very high, aren't they?
Yes, women's sports are twice the chance of getting a concussion. Part of it's neck strength. Men have stronger necks than women, and that's part of it. But yeah, not just basketball, but soccer, cheerleading, any sport that you're actively participating in, you have a chance of a concussion, and it needs to be mitigated by this new discovery.
Doctor, I appreciate you being here. I want you folks to pay attention. If you're in sports, your kids are in sports, your grandkids are in sports, NeuroGuardPlus.com. Use the promo code Gruber. You're going to save some money. You're going to save their brains because concussions are a lot worse than we ever used to think. He has made a difference here, folks. Dr. Hutchinson should be world famous. NeuroGuardPlus.com. Use that promo code Gruber. Save a little bit of money and keep your head in the game. Doctor, thank you as always.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Greatly appreciate it.
See you later.
It's a beautiful invention that keeps kids' heads intact. NeuroGuardPlus.com. I beg of you, keep your head in the game. I'll be right back. All right, back at it now. Glad to have you here. Been a lot of conversations about Alex Preddy being killed last weekend in Minneapolis. He was carrying a legal gun to a point, but he didn't have his ID. He didn't have his permission slip with him, his CDL card or whatever, meaning he was carrying that gun unlawfully. And as soon as he got in a confrontation with police and didn't announce that I have a gun, also violated the rules. But still a tragic situation. Joining me now is Dudley Brown. He is the president of the National Association for Gun Rights. Dudley, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
This is a bad situation. I don't know. To me, it looks like what happened is they disarmed Mr. Preddy. And it appears in one of the videos, and look, there's so many videos, I don't know what to believe and whatnot. It appears that the gun may have discharged in the officer's hands. Well, at that point, there's heightened concern, heightened alert, and they fired. A terrible outcome. He is legal to carry a gun at a protest. I am. I've gone to protest carrying my concealed pistol. But what is your take on all of this at this point?
Well, I don't buy any arguments about him not carrying the proper permit with him, or that he didn't follow the little tiny rules. I mean, that's
technicalities. I'll give you that.
That's really nitpicking in my view, Steve. But I think our big concern is, first and foremost, you can't impede a law enforcement officer. If Preddy did things that caused him to be arrested, be disarmed, arrested, and ultimately paid the ultimate price for screwing around and not being in the right spot or being too aggressive. Well,
here's a footnote
out later in a trial, maybe.
This is a fact that's important. Preddy was there with a broken rib because he had gotten in an altercation with law enforcement 1 week earlier that resulted in one of his ribs getting broken. He wasn't new to the scene. All right, keep going.
You know, and I don't have all that info yet. As I actually get it, I look through it, sift through it. But what really bothers me, and the point we want to make, is the administration's comments about it. First, the FBI director came out and essentially said you can't carry a handgun at a protest. And as you just said, Steve, you carry.
Of course you can.
At a protest, I virtually carry 2 handguns every day and multiple magazines, and largely because 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And I carry everywhere. And the FBI director making this claim was silly. And I know everyone's going to say, you know, you got to read the context and what he said. No, this is a really, really bad look for the administration. I mean, it sounded more like it came from the Obama administration than it did from the Trump administration. Then Kristi Noem said some dumb things, not terribly out of character for her. And then the Secretary of the Treasury had to join in with the idiocy. This was just a big bumbling. And I don't even say what the president said yesterday was not terribly coherent. So let's be clear, for average Americans, not people who have security around them all the time. You should carry a gun when you're practicing your First Amendment rights. That's the time in which many people want to shut you up and cause you violence. Ask Charlie Kirk. Now, almost anybody who's involved in these circumstances would say they want to avoid them, and you should try to avoid them. But it's every American's right, whether you're a lefty or a righty or a middle grounder, to protect yourself and have the tools for self-defense. And frankly, the state of Minnesota already impedes people pretty dramatically. And us arguing that Mr. Preddy didn't follow all the rules, those rules should be virtually zero. They should be a constitutional carry state like 29 other states in our country. So it is not a function of government on American citizens' rights to protect themselves. They have that right, and they should. And it doesn't matter which party you're from or which tribe or who you voted for president. Come on. Now, do we have issue with them? Of course, I don't agree with Mr. Preddy on, sounds like I didn't agree with him on anything. But I'll still defend the right.
Yeah, he has the right to carry, and that's a fact. And you're right, it's technicalities they're leaning on here. To me, it's not a good look. I don't think at the time that he died, he was a threat to those officers, but they didn't know it. Look, they're being agitated all the time. Horns, whistles, cars, nonsense, stuff being thrown at them. Their adrenaline levels are surging. There's chaos. One of the officers yells, "Gun, gun, gun." And even though he's disarmed, I think by that time, when a gunshot goes off, it hits the fan. And you're exactly right, Dudley. You could just not be there. You could stand back 100 feet and protest and yell and scream and carry on. But to insert yourself in that situation becomes very volatile and very dangerous. But that does not
And he clearly
disregard
was
the man's
there
rights.
to agitate. He was there to agitate. We know that. All the smaller circumstances of how he did it, I'm not certain of it yet. I haven't sifted through all the images. I know years ago, I certainly did that with a young man named Kyle Rittenhouse, who now kind of works for me. And Kyle stood up, and he probably shouldn't have been there. I would have never let my son, age 17, show up at a BLM riot in anywhere.
Well, and in fact, it's interesting you say that.
Was there.
We just spoke to Kyle here, and it's going to be put up on a podcast here in the next couple of days. He said, I had no business being there at 17. He'll tell you that himself. He had no business being there. He knows that. But on the same token, he had the right to defend himself once he was there. Different situation. I want to go back to what you said about Kristi Noem and Kash Patel. Do you have any faith in Kristi Noem? You would not be alone. A lot of people voicing concerns over Kristi Noem, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, some of the people that have not proven themselves to be great members of this cabinet thus far. There are a lot of people that think that those people maybe should be replaced. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I won't call for anybody's replacement yet, but and no one would listen to me anyway. I did make a lot of inquiries into my friends and people highly placed in the administration when I read many of the comments, and I think it was 3 letters, WTF. I don't think I needed to say any more. That was pretty bizarre. Now,
All right, so where I live, we caught the edge of that big storm that went across the country last weekend. 200 million people were under the problems, power outages, people still without power today. On Saturday morning here at the studios, it was minus 25.4 degrees ambient air temperature, the real thing. That's kind of sharp. If you're not prepared, you're making a mistake. And I mean all things in the cabinet. I mean food, water, maybe ammunition, whatever it is that you think you need, you should have. What about medications? Dr. Peter McCullough is the Chief Scientific Officer at the Wellness Company. He joins me now to discuss preparations in cases of emergency. Doctor, good morning.
Good morning.
People think about going, I mean, I saw these lines. You saw this too. They're at the grocery store. Their carts are packed full. I mean, does anybody plan ahead anymore? I mean, they got 12,000 rolls of toilet paper. I'm like, really? You're not ready for this? But the thing they don't think about, and with all the pharmacies closing across America, what if you need that medication for diabetes or blood pressure or whatever else it might be? Or what if you need a good emergency kit because you cut yourself when you're home and there's no power? People do not think ahead enough in this country anymore. What are your thoughts?
I agree, and they should think ahead regarding medications, particularly emergency medical kits. I'm in Texas, Steve. We haven't been out of the house in 5 days. We can't get out the back of our driveway and alley. So listen, even if even if the pharmacies are open, sometimes you can't get there. I've had patients that can't get mobilized. Everybody should have an emergency medical kit at home per person at home. 8 essential medications, treats over 30 diseases. I had multiple patients actually develop problems, and thank goodness they had the kits, and we were able to solve them at home.
I am a believer in these kits. I have them here, right, so I can show people. Here's the original. It is the medical emergency kit. Antibiotics, it has antivirals, antiparasitics, and a whole host of other things. And there's a book in here. I mean, most people aren't doctors. There's a book in here to explain, okay, if you have this situation, here's how you use this medication. It's very simple. It's user-friendly. Explain what I will find in this kit for the folks that might not have one yet.
Well, this is what has happened over the weekend. So one of my patients had a viral illness. It progressed into a sinusitis. Well, you can diagnose the sinusitis yourself, use the guidebook, call telemedicine if you need it, or bronchitis. She started the appropriate antibiotics, and it literally cleared in about 4 days. And she didn't miss work. She didn't have to go into the urgent care. It was so worth it to have the emergency medical kit at home. And, now that some of the medicine has been used, she can use the replenishment program and then get the bottle refilled.
Yeah. And it's not just that. The Wellness Company, your team, Doctor, and I applaud you for this. You came out with the original. This is a great kit. I have it here at home. And then last summer, I burned my hand badly in a sauna. And we're 20 minutes from an ER, and the skin was coming off the back of my hand, a little belch of steam. And I'm like, wow, I have a problem. I went to this kit, the first aid kit. It was right here. Ivy and I had everything we needed to treat that hand before I saw a doctor, which greatly reduced the recovery time. Everything I needed for an emergency was right here. Look, if the roads are covered with snow and ice, an ambulance can't get to you if something bad happens. You need to be able to be prepared at home to deal with at least minor emergencies. What's in this kit? How important is it to have one of these?
That's really a first aid kit if you're out camping, out in the woods. But I have to tell you, we were on a ski trip up in the mountains in a condo, and actually one of our members burned their hand baking cookies. It was the same thing, Steve. But thank goodness we had all the burn treatment materials and medicines there, and I treated the burn actually. And just like your situation, we avoided major skin contractures, problems later on, infections, and having to go to urgent care. So I tell you, all of us, no matter how adventuresome we are or how conservative we are, we still need an emergency medical kit.
And one of the other things that's in here, because you're on vacation, like you mentioned, or you're snowed in, or whatever the case may be, and all of a sudden you have an anaphylactic shock, and you have no way, and you have moments to figure it out. An EpiPen, it's indispensable because you don't know. My father nearly died as an adult because he ate shellfish, had no idea he was allergic to it. He happened to have epinephrine. He was a pharmaceutical rep. He had it available. Short of that, I would have lost my father a lot earlier in life. Those sorts of things are here too, aren't they?
They are. Now, remember EpiPen, you need to follow up with a trip to the emergency room because there can be rebound. But in there, products to handle acute allergies, difficulty with respect to, acute strains and other injuries. And I think a lot of the material in there, actually, Steve, is to stop bleeding. The
Yeah.
bigger gouges that you can't manage with simple pressure, we have all kinds of tools in there to help stop major bleeding before there's too much blood loss and you end up really in trouble out in the woods somewhere.
Yeah. My advice, be as paranoid as a Boy Scout. In other words, be prepared is their motto at the Boy Scouts. Be prepared. All right, before I let you go, flu and COVID and other upper respiratory illnesses running around. It's run through this house not once but twice so far this winter. What's the latest?
Our CDC says we're on the 14th wave of COVID. It looks just like the common cold or the flu. I'm still seeing cases that need the treatment McCullough protocol. That is, multiple drugs in combination. I think the lead is ivermectin. Rarely have to use corticosteroids, sometimes secondary antibiotics, but it needs to be treated. Ultimately, people who don't treat these early viral infections can end up with some problem. Recently, Steve, I had a patient have this, went untreated, it's a case of COVID, ended up with a huge blood clot, and it nearly took her life. So treat COVID-19 early, treat influenza early. All the materials you need are in the emergency medical kits. The black kit fills all those roles for these acute viral infections.
The contagion kit. Several different kits to choose from, Doctor. Your team has put together the best kits because you put a lot of time, effort, and thought into what people would need in different situations. Sir, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Get your kit today, twc.health/Gruber. twc.health/Gruber. This is just two of the kits. And trust me, when I burned myself, this was a great thing to have on the shelf. They have a travel kit, a kit for children, the contagion kit, twc.health/Gruber. Don't be unprepared, okay? I'll be right back. Hey, if you like to ice fish or get out on the ice of the big water, this is your year again. You know, every fall they tell us, oh, Great Lakes ice, it's on the decline. No, it's not. I've got the latest numbers here, by the way. Great Lakes surface ice at almost half right now. Half. It's doubled in a week. And these cold temperatures aren't going anywhere. We're getting another cold blast. And so Lake Erie, by the way, completely ice covered, just about. Saginaw Bay is covered. Green Bay is covered. Big chunks of Lake Superior covered with ice now. So if you're into that sort of thing, if you want to be part of that grumpy old men scenario out there, catching fish to the ice and drinking antifreeze, well, it's your winter. It's your winter. I bring this to your attention because it's hard to believe, but it's been 20 years now. I mentioned this at the top of the show. 20 years now since Al Gore came out with his movie, An Inconvenient Truth. What was inconvenient about it was all garbage. His doom and gloom documentary, he won the Oscar for that piece of garbage, as I recall. Premiered 2006 at Sundance. The catalyst for the climate activist movement was that movie. Guess what? The Arctic, still frozen. Great Lakes, still frozen. Yeah, it's all true. 20 years. We're going to have some people on to talk about this the next couple of days. All the doom and gloom predictions that he made. Mount Kilimanjaro would have no snow by 2016. Well, guess what? Mount Kilimanjaro still covered in snow this winter. The Rocky Mountains don't have a lot of snow this winter, but boy, do we here. That's for sure. Boy, do we have it here. Let me ask you something. How many of you feel mentally fried by mid-afternoon? Not tired from sleep, but not sharp enough to focus either. That's the reality for a lot of people every day. That's why I want to tell you about Brain Reward from my good friends at Victory Nutrition International. Best vitamins I've ever had. Not caffeine, not a stimulant, no jittery nonsense. Brain Reward designed to support focus, mental clarity, and calm without revving you up and crashing you later, and that's what matters. Victory Nutrition International. Best research vitamins. Ivy did all the homework. You're going to love this company. VNI. Victory Nutrition International. VNI.life/Gruber. You can get a big savings today for VNI. And face the apocalypse with a can-do attitude. Thank you, Al Gore. VNI.life/Gruber. It's a can-do attitude. The world's going to end. No, it's not. And in fact, we'll have another hour of the Steve Gruber Show still to come.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. To the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, let's kick off another brand new hour as we fight for you from the Foxhole of Freedom every single day, putting America first. That's what we do here. And we dig deeper and give you better analysis than anywhere else. You'll be the best educated folks in media today. Here are three big things you need to know right now. Number one, the doomsday clock clicking closer to the end of humanity. Al Gore would like that. I think I'll just have a bourbon and a ribeye. I mean, why panic? Embrace the apocalypse with a can-do attitude. Number two, Bill Maher says it's time for Hollywood and its self-appointed morality cops to just shut the F up. He says they're hurting Democrats with their antics. You mean he just noticed? And number three, Democrats, as we've been talking about for a few days, going all in on the chaos in Minnesota. Anything to distract from the series of successes of President Donald Trump during his first year back in office. They are so desperate. They're planning to shut down the government if they can at the end of the week, under the guise of defunding ICE operations. Yeah, defund the police. Brilliant idea. Pretty silly. Considering the one big beautiful bill, by the way, funded ICE with billions of dollars, $75 billion, I believe, through 2029. It doesn't matter if they shut down the government. ICE still funded $75 billion through the end of 2029. But don't let those facts distract from their foaming at the mouth hatred of President Trump, upsetting the globalist apple cart and doing it with a smile on his face. Here's an example. It's one senator after another now saying, "We will not fund ICE." You already did that. You already did that, folks. Here's the California Senator Padilla saying he will vote against the spending bill so he can try to defund police. How dumb are these people? Anyhow, here it is.
Do you stand with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer? Will you vote against the funding bill for DHS when it comes up for a vote?
So, well, good morning, Jonathan. Good morning to all of you. And let me say a couple of things. First of all, of course, I'm against this spending bill. I was against it the moment it was, the language was made public.
Yeah, he's against it. So are some others. You know who's not against it? John Fetterman. The one Democrat, the guy who had a stroke during his campaign to become a senator, that guy is the one guy that has a clear mind and his head screwed on straight, as my mother used to say. Here's another Democrat. This one comparing President Trump. I mean, what they do here is reprehensible. Tim Walz suggested that what happens in Minnesota right now is like what happened to Anne Frank in Nazi-controlled Europe. Unbelievable. But here's one. Here's a new twist on it. How about a Democrat comparing the president to the Ayatollah in Iran? You know, the same guys that hang people in public, take people into political prison, and then execute them the next day by the thousands every year. Here's a Democrat comparing the president to the Ayatollah. Listen.
So to me, what we saw is absolutely the same kind of rhetoric, and what we're hearing is the same kind of rhetoric that you hear from totalitarian governments, like when you hear the Ayatollah tell peaceful protesters they can't protest.
I got to ask you. If you're a Democrat or you vote for people like Kamala Harris, aren't you embarrassed by this? Honestly. I mean, you know, it's embarrassingly stupid. Find a better comparison. He's not a dictator. He's not using his military to gun down thousands of people in the streets. Last time I checked, we're not having public hangings in America. Last time somebody was executed in public in America was the 1930s, I believe. the world has changed. We're not Iran. We are not Nazi Germany. We're a country that was overrun by millions of illegals because of reckless, intentional policies of the Biden administration. Barack Obama still holds the record for deporting people, more than 5 million, during his tenure, called the deporter-in-chief, a guy who gave Tom Homan a medal for the great work he was doing. Tom Homan, by the way, in Minneapolis now, running that place. Bovino has been sent to California to work. Greg Bovino. Anyhow, here's what, speaking of Barack Obama, remember what he said about illegal aliens? You probably don't. But the internet is undefeated. Here it is.
You've broken the law. You didn't come here the way you were supposed to. So this is not going to be a free ride. What's going to happen is you are going to learn English. You are going to go to the back of the line so that you don't get ahead of somebody who was in Mexico City applying legally. I think the American people, they appreciate and believe in immigration, but they can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border without any kind of mechanism to control it.
500,000? We would have taken 500,000. Nobody knows how many came in during the Biden administration. Some say 10 million, some say twice that. Some say more than that even. We don't know. And yet those on the other side now compare enforcing immigration laws that were enforced strictly by Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and George W. Bush. Now, if you do it, you're a Nazi, you're the Ayatollah, you're a dictator, so on and so forth. I'm seriously, if you're a Democrat, aren't you embarrassed? Aren't you kind of like, really? This is like Auschwitz or Dachau. We had that yesterday, of course. And again, the dumbest thing you'll continue to hear are people like Tim Walz comparing Minnesota to Nazi Germany. Yeah, here's that Anne Frank quote. You got to hear it. Listen.
We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota. And there's one person who can end this now.
Yeah, just like Anne Frank. Hey, are you tired of hard water ruining your appliances, staining your sinks, drying out your skin? At Wolverine Water Systems, they've been delivering pure, clean, great-tasting water to Michigan families for more than 75 years. Whether it's well water or city water, the American-made water softeners and filtration systems are custom-built to fix your water problems. Go to WolverineWaterSystems.com today for a free in-home water test. WolverineWaterSystems.com. Pure, clean water. WolverineWaterSystems.com is the place to get your system fixed up in Michigan. They've been good friends of mine for years now, so take a look at them. Coming up, the dark web crime ring draining hundreds of billions from the federal government. You thought Minnesota was a mark? It's just small potatoes compared to targeting the federal government and your tax dollars. We're going to talk about it after the break. Doesn't it just, I mean, we're working all the time, just hustling through it all, so much to cover any given day and trying to give you, I didn't know that. Or that's a different way to look at it. Dr. David Maiman is the head of fraud insights at Centrelink and nicknamed the undercover professor for his dark web research. He gets into places that I've frankly never seen. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve.
All right, so you say the dark web and the untold amount of crime in there, which is to the billions of dollars, you say it's targeting the federal government. And I've mentioned this for a while. If the state of Minnesota was a mark for these fraudsters on a pretty much open slate, what happens in the dark web? Because the federal government is a much bigger mark for fraudsters, isn't it?
The federal government is a huge target for fraudsters, unfortunately. The darknet essentially allow a lot of people to get together and contemplate and teach each other about how to steal money from the government, unfortunately.
So let me ask you this. Explain this to people. I don't know how to get to the dark web. I've heard about it. I've understood it. Don't know that I've ever actually seen it. How does somebody access the dark web? What is it? Why is it so nefarious?
To access the darknet, all you have to do is just download a browser, which is called Tor. You can download the browser freely to your computer. Once you have the browser installed on your computer, you need to just ask for or look for a relevant URL, which will allow you to go on nefarious markets where you can purchase all kind of illicit commodities. You can buy drugs, you can buy weapons, but unfortunately you can buy commodities which will facilitate fraudulent operations like identities, like tutorials of how to engage in fraud, like stolen checks and stolen debit and credit cards. All you have to do is just open an account on those markets and start purchasing relevant commodities.
Commodities, which sadly on any given day include women and children and others. True or false?
The identities of women and children, of course.
I don't mean identities. I mean the sale of human beings. I mean, I hear about that on the dark web. A lot of terrible things going on. But let's focus on the fraud targeted at the United States government. How does the dark web facilitate targeting fraud schemes, financial schemes at the government?
Well, what you have on the darknet are a lot of tutorials which teach you how to file for fraudulent tax refund. A lot of tutorials which teach you how to put together all kind of nefarious fraudulent operations targeting the government. Like, in 2020, a lot of PPP unemployment benefits applications. We are seeing a lot of tutorials around how to engage in SBA loans. We see a lot of people coordinating with each other over the darknet, over text message applications, in order to engage in this type of operations. The darknet essentially facilitate the supply chain, which bring together different types of actors, which will allow you to fetch the money, steal the money from the government, then bring it into accounts, which will allow you to take the money and run away with it.
Wow. So what can be done about it? I mean, if you can find it, and you can find these tutorials, I would have to believe, well, I'm confused here. Are the tutorials covered by First Amendment speech rights? Or if you're promoting a crime, are those rights set aside? How would you go about combating this kind of fraud and crime?
Well, I mean, you need to be aware of it, first of all. You need to know that it's happening. You need to know that the tutorials are out there. You need to know that a lot of our identities are being offered for sale on the darknet. Once you're aware of it, once you are there with the criminals, you understand what they're doing, you understand how they're operating, you'll be in a better position to prevent what they're doing. You'll be able to mitigate maybe their operations. You'll be able to disrupt the operation. That is what we need to do more and more.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. If you're in there and you can tell me how I can get in there, then clearly government agents are also in there, correct?
I have strong reason to believe that we have government agents covering some of the markets, many of the markets that we spend a lot of time in, yes.
Yeah. How do we stop it? I mean, how much money do you think we're getting scammed out of? I mean, I see what happens in Minnesota, and that was kind of out in the open. I mean, here's daycare centers that have no children and home health care facilities that don't visit anybody to give them any health information and so on and so forth. That's pretty much out in the open, which is why it was busted. Should have been done 10 years ago, but here we are. How hard is it to run these people down inside the dark web?
It's very complicated, right, to find those individuals. But I think it's definitely something we can do. We can definitely run effective disruption operations if we are just there with the criminals. We understand what is it that they do. We learn their operations. We have the right tools to prevent this type of crimes from happening. Unfortunately, I can't talk about specific numbers, but when we talk about fraud nowadays in the United States, we are losing billions of dollars. The government does lose billions of dollars by most of the estimates that I'm familiar with. Fraud is this really interesting type of crime where it's very difficult to provide specific numbers with respect to how much we have of it and how much exactly we're losing for it. But by most estimates that I'm familiar with, we are talking about billions of dollars that the government is losing to fraud.
Unbelievable. People, they don't play in the dark web. They just stay on the internet and get on social media and so on and so forth. This is an underbelly to being connected. Sir, thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Ever been on the dark web? Anthony, ever been on the dark web?
Yep.
You have?
Yeah. In high school.
Of course he has.
School computer.
Uh-huh. Of course he has. I should have done a better background check, but apparently I was remiss in my needs. I'll be right back. Well, if you haven't been told yet this week or this year, the sky is falling. Yeah, sky's falling, Anthony. Just get an umbrella. What do I mean by that? The doomsday clock, which was been running for a while now, says we are closer to apocalypse now than we've ever been. And that's why I say, hey, have a bourbon. Nice, medium rare ribeye. Oh, marbled, real, just so really good steak. I mean, if the apocalypse is coming, why not enjoy the last few days, right? I would just suggest that. Make sure you're right with God. That's for sure. Make sure you got your act together there, and then relax. You can't stop it if it's true. Anyhow, the doomsday clock. A metaphorical clock now stands at 85 seconds to midnight. It advanced 4 seconds since last year. It's a meaningless metric. It means nothing at all. The clock is now the closest to midnight since its introduction in 1947. It's updated each year by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, which organizes the assessment of how close we are to a self-inflicted end of humanity. Citing a worldwide failure of leadership, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, Science and Security Board set the doomsday clock at 85 seconds to midnight, the closest it's ever been to catastrophe. Come on. I mean, if you listen to all this, the world's ending. Al Gore says the world is ending, an inconvenient truth. That was 20 years ago. It was 25 degrees below zero Saturday morning here. Coldest day I can remember in Michigan in decades. And yet climate change, global warming is going to kill me? Come on. Anyhow, if the apocalypse is inevitable, I'm going to enjoy it. Take it on with a can-do attitude. Wouldn't you? I mean, why get all stressed out about it? Come on, folks, relax. It's another beautiful day. The sun's come up. Well, it will. And you're going to have a great day. Besides, you're spending part of it with me. How bad could it be? When I come back, we're going to talk about the limits of federal power in the United States Constitution. It's being tested, says my next guest. We'll talk about it. Most people don't know anything about the Constitution, but pretend they do. But my next guest actually does. Pretty important. I'll be right back. All right, the United States Constitution. I keep a copy right here on the desk, as you know. It's well worn. Came to me from my friends at Hillsdale College Pocket Constitution. Probably need to get a new one. It's worn out. You ever notice how many people talk about the Constitution and say, well, the Constitution says this or that, and they have no idea what they're talking about? Kind of funny, really. Well, I saw it on TikTok. It must be true. Yeah, TikTok's my source for constitutional information. Come on. My next guest, William Watkins Jr., is a renowned constitutional law expert, practicing attorney, research fellow at the Independent Institute, and author of the forthcoming The Independent Guide to the Constitution. William, thank you for being here.
Steve, great to be here. Thank you, sir.
Glad to have you here. But yeah, my Constitution's a little beat up because I have to pick it up and read portions of it to people sometimes because they say, well, this is that and this. Most people, sadly, when people that come here as legal immigrants know more about the Constitution than the vast majority of kids we put through public schools. What do you think about that thought?
I think it's unfortunate that study of our Constitution is pretty much ignored insofar as our government ignores it, other than a few structural items. I think you can trace that to the problem, but this is the people's fundamental law, and the people ought to know it.
And so when you say the United States is testing the limits of federal power, explain what you mean by that.
Well, what I mean is simply this, is we are a federal republic. We are testing the limits insofar as all the branches, the presidency, Congress, and the courts are pushing up or have surpassed in some ways the outer limits of the jurisdiction set in the Constitution. And how long can you remain a republic when you have these governmental bodies operating, frankly, outside what the fundamental law dictates?
Give me an example, because, you know, the power of the executive has increased, I think, exponentially. It happened during Teddy Roosevelt's time. It happened during FDR's time. It's happened ever since. The executive gets more power. And in large part, I see the Congress abdicating its authority too often and saying, well, you know, they'll just look the other way. It's weird to me because members of Congress have certain enumerated powers in the Constitution, yet they seem to abdicate them all too often. But what are you concerned about? Give me some examples.
Well, it's all three branches. For example, the Supreme Court has turned into the final arbiter of the Constitution. We accept this idea of judicial supremacy, that the court is the final word, rather than judicial review, that the court can review coordinate branch decisions, which is perfectly constitutional, but instead it is the supreme being out of the three branches. That's an example. Look at what's happened recently with President Trump and the military maneuvers in Venezuela and capturing Maduro, who, again, is a bad guy, not a sympathetic figure, but the Constitution tells us that Congress should decide when we declare war, deploy troops, and
but we didn't declare war. We did not declare a war. You can declare a military action. I'm going to disagree with you on this one. Only 5 times in American history have we ever declared war. War of 1812, Mexican-American War 1846, Spanish-American War 1898, World War I, World War II. Other than that, in American history, and there have been a whole lot of military actions in the 19th century, the 20th century, the 21st century, never been governed by Congress. And to be fair, if you had to go ask Congress to remove Maduro, which is in the nation's best interest, in my estimation, it would never get done. So we've only declared war 5 times, ever. What about it?
Well, I would take an authorization of the use of military force. I mean, let's face it, our Constitution, we have 8 clauses that vest Congress with the power over foreign affairs, war, clearly to grant letters of marque and reprisal, declare war, govern the armed forces, set rules for captures, et cetera, et cetera. You're right. The presidency has, with Congress's assent, has accepted new powers not granted. The president's commander-in-chief. All that means is we have civilian control over the military. I agree with you. It's Congress's fault
but hold
that they're
on.
not at the forefront.
Are you suggesting that the president, as commander-in-chief, doesn't have the legal authority to go to another country and take out an adversary?
Yeah, I'm suggesting that was the framers' intention, is that no one man could put American forces, American troops into harm's way without the legislature of the republic, Congress, authorizing that. Washington followed that in his term when he refused an aggressive war against the Creek Indians without congressional authorization, and it should be the national pattern. It hasn't been.
Thomas Jefferson, however, Thomas Jefferson, however, did not have a declaration of war when he took out the Barbary pirates upon establishing the United States Marine Corps. So this power of the president goes back to the third president at least. Thomas Jefferson didn't concern himself with a declaration of war to take out the Barbary pirates, now did he?
No, he didn't, but Thomas Jefferson also didn't authorize aggressive action against Spanish forces in the Louisiana Territory either without a declaration from Congress. He put American forces on alert and we could defend ourselves, but we have that example too. Look, just my point is, the framers meant to depart from the European system of executive power where it's the executive, the president, the king, has all powers of war making, military affairs, and they sought to change that. Has that been a failure in many regards because of overpowerful executives? Yeah, but that's not what the Constitution intended or the framers intended.
What else besides that particular point, which I'll respectfully disagree, and I think that the executive as commander-in-chief does have the ability to take a threat out. That's the number one job of government, to protect us from threats, foreign and domestic. But what else?
Well, look at, for example, laws that Congress passes. For example, the commerce power has nothing to do anymore with trade or actual buying and selling goods throughout the United States overseas. It's the authority Congress has used for the civil rights regime, for massive numbers of criminal statutes. I mean, for example, you're a felon in possession in the United States. How does the government criminalize that? Well, because the firearm traveled at some point in interstate commerce, not that the guy bought it in commerce, but just at some time in its existence. You talk about stretching the Commerce Clause, and that's just an example of how Congress legislates, ignoring constitutional limitations.
Yeah, I would say the Commerce Clause has been perverted. I will agree with you on that. It's nowhere near what it should have been. You know, I enjoy talking to you. You should come back more, because discussing the Constitution, our differences of opinion. I mean, I've got Ketanji Brown Jackson, who I don't think even is familiar with the document on the Supreme Court. I don't know if she's ever read the thing, but you know, we have activist judges doing all sorts of crazy things every day as well, sir. I appreciate you being here, William. I'd love to have you back. So thank you.
Thanks. Good to be on the show.
Greatly appreciate it. There you have it. You know, again, you have people say, well, it's in the Constitution. Separation of, you know, church and state. Really? It's not what it says. It's not how it reads. At any rate, we like to talk about good things. I'll be right back. You much more in detail in the next hour. Arrested these anarchists, these violent protesters, these paid protesters. When they get arrested, which so many have now, then you get to find out who they are, what they're all about. By the way, there's an Antifa member. Let me get to this. I want to share this with you. Minnesota Antifa member claims he's on the run. I don't know if you saw this video. I didn't play it for you because I found the guy to be reprehensible. But he basically said it's time to take up arms and start a revolution and things of that nature. He called for armed men to get their boots on the ground. Now he claims he's on the run. Kyle Wagner is his name. You know, he looks like what you would expect. Big gauges in his ear, those big holes, throat tattoos. You know, a guy you wouldn't hire to do the midnight shift at 7-Eleven. He's one of these main agitators, right? But the Minnesota Anti-Border Patrol riot backfires as agitators there that throw objects and accost police and resist arrest. Well, they've got rap sheets. I know it's hard to believe. Rap sheets that are pretty long. We're going to get to some of this. How about I'll give you one preview here. Justin Neil Shelton. Arrested on charges of obstructing legal process in 2007. He pled guilty to a charge of first-degree aggravated robbery after he beat up a pregnant woman while he and another individual were trying to steal her car. Here's one of your ordinary Minnesota folks just trying to protect their neighbors, right? Abraham Nelson Coleman, he's 45. He's been arrested for theft, felony theft, damage to property, theft 3 more times. Just a guy trying to protect his neighbors. These are dregs of society, many of them. We're going to dig deeper into that when we come back. Meanwhile, Tom Homan says he's going to make it a lot easier to find these folks and know who they are. Tom Homan taking the step of saying, I'm going to create a database, and I'm going to put their picture on there. I'm going to show you exactly who these people are that we're arresting, and you tell me you want this person living across the street from the elementary school. You tell me you support these people. You tell me this is somebody you want to go to Sunday school with or sit next to at a ball game. Here he is.
This job and these people who want to say follow ICE, and film ICE, you know what? You can protest. They have that right. But when you cross that line, and we've proven it, if you interfere or impede or assault an ICE officer, you will be prosecuted. And one thing I'm pushing for right now, Laura, we're going to create a database. Those people that are arrested for interference, impediment, assault, we're going to make them famous. We're going to put their face on TV. We're going to let their employers in their neighborhoods, in their schools, know who these people are. Because as you said, a lot of these people, they say they're taking time off work to protest. I bet you a lot of them are calling in sick. I bet you a lot of their employers don't know what they're doing. But we're going to make sure everybody knows who they are. We're going to broadcast. They want to broadcast the ICE officer that was nearly killed all over the internet. We're going to broadcast every one of these people we arrest.
Put them out there. Make them famous. I appreciate that, Tom. You should get a medal for that, too. Meanwhile, you have to ask yourself, and I asked this before, Democrats, are you proud of this? Seriously, are you proud of demonizing police and telling me that criminals are victims? I just gave you 2 examples. I'm going to go through a whole list at the top of the hour. Whole list. Are you proud of the way these people are conducting themselves? People calling to defund the police because apparently they think that a illegal criminal in the country illegally who's maybe murdered somebody or forcibly sodomized a child, and yes, these are some of the charges, you think they should stay here? You think we should protect them and demonize the police? Well, some do. In fact, Eric Swalwell, remarkably incapable member of Congress from California, who's also running for governor there. Of California, if you elect this guy, you deserve everything you get. He says if you work for ICE, you're unemployable in California. If you've worn the badge of Customs and Border Patrol or Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you will not get a job in California. Really? This is how twisted and sick these people are. Listen.
But I also call on governors, Kate. Governors have immense powers. And I have said that when I'm governor of California, if you wear a mask in California, you're losing your driver's license. If you have worked for ICE in the past, you are unhirable in our state. That law enforcement will prosecute you for kidnapping, battery, assault, murder on the people in our communities. We have to go on offense as governors.
Wait. We're going to need to hear that again, because how many times you go back to the summer of Floyd, right? And the riots in Minneapolis or California elsewhere, and these Antifa members, these anti-government elements, these violent anarchists wore masks all the time. What did he say again? Play that again.
But I also call on governors, Kate. Governors have immense powers. And I have said that when I'm governor of California, if you wear a mask in California, you're losing your driver's license. If you have worked for ICE in the past, you're unhirable.
Does that apply to Antifa members and violent agitators? If you wear a mask, you lose your driver's license. Isn't wearing a mask a form of freedom of speech? This is the way I dress? Is that going to be true of Muslim women going to mosque in California? They'll lose their driver's license because they cover their face. That's a mask, is it not? This guy's an idiot. Flat out idiot. California, if you like this guy, good luck. And Texas, open your doors because a lot of U-Hauls will be flowing in. Arizona, Texas, Tennessee, Florida. Open your doors because more people are coming. Guarantee it. I'll take a break. I'll have sports with Brock after this. It's all rigged. Well, let's hear from Brock first, and we'll talk about that. Here's sports.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. Lots of college basketball last night. In the game of the night on the men's side, 5th-ranked Michigan beat 3rd-ranked Nebraska 75-72 in Ann Arbor. The Cornhuskers no longer undefeated. Only top-ranked Arizona and 24th-ranked Miami of Ohio are undefeated. Number 2 Connecticut and number 7 Michigan State were victorious as well. In women's basketball, 14th-ranked Baylor beat Houston 82-66, but 22nd-ranked West Virginia lost at Utah 71-64. In the NBA last night, there were 7 games. Winners included Detroit, New York, Oklahoma City, and the LA Clippers. In the NHL, there were 10 games. Winners included Montreal, Buffalo, Minnesota, and Utah. At the Australian Open, on the women's side, 6th-seeded American Jessica Pegula beat fellow American Amanda Anisimova to advance to the semifinals. She'll play 5th-seeded Elena Rybakina in the semis. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
Yep, it's all rigged. I mean, what conclusion could you draw, Brock, that it's not rigged?
What do you mean, sir?
Come on. Bill Belichick doesn't get voted in on the first ballot to the Hall of Fame. Give me a break.
I didn't have time to get that in there.
Give me a break.
You know, I've been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame twice, and it's tremendous, but they have sullied that by not putting him in. Obviously, there's some people that hate his guts, and this is their way of sticking it to him.
Well, why do they hate him? Because he has 8 Super Bowl rings, count them 8, 6 as a head coach?
Because they think he cheated with Deflategate and the Spygate.
Oh, please.
And his personality is not the greatest, you know.
Mm-hmm. Or he has a hot girlfriend. Which is it?
Well, you know, maybe that's jealousy. I don't know. But regardless, even if you don't like the guy. It's inexcusable,
Brock.
Yep,
it's
totally
an absolutely inexcusable thing. It's a joke.
Yep.
I mean, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is just as worthless as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I say again, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a fraud. If Jethro Tull isn't in there and Dolly Parton is, it's a fraud. And Bill Belichick not making it to the Hall of Fame makes it a fraud. What's that?
Dolly Parton's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Check your records, Brock.
I'll look it up. You may be right, but
maybe right. Check your records, Brock.
I will.
Bill Belichick not making it into the Football Hall of Fame is an absolute joke.
Yep, I agree.
All right. There, I got that off my chest. Hey, I'll be right back with more right here on the Steve Gruber Show.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
And good morning on another cold January day. Guess what? It's snowing. I know you're shocked to hear that. The Foxhole of Freedom getting in need of a shovel or a snow blower. It snows every day. We're way ahead of schedule, by the way, on snowfall for the year. We'll keep an eye on that. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, condolences to Governor Gretchen Whitmer today. In all seriousness, her father passed away, she announced on social media. He was 85. Richard Whitmer passed away. He held a lot of positions in his life. So our condolences to the governor and her family for their loss. Number two, political posturing takes center stage in the upcoming vote for ICE and so forth. Of course, Michigan senators right in the middle of that. And number three, as we discuss all of the things going on with ICE in Minnesota and two people killed by federal agents in the last month, I think it's time to review who some of these folks are. Now, Mr. Preddy, Alex Preddy, shot on Saturday during a scuffle with police. Probably not a good shoot. Maybe technically legal, but in all fairness, not a good shoot. He had been disarmed. It seems to me a gun went off nearby. The officers, in an agitated state because they're being accosted continuously with horns and whistles and noise and projectiles, they didn't know where the shot came from. So they defended themselves against what they perceived as a threat, which probably was not. That's the fact of the matter on that one. But Alex Preddy did show up to the event on Saturday prior to being killed with a broken rib that he suffered a week earlier, scuffling with police. So let's be clear about this. He was no stranger to these violent confrontations. He had a broken rib. It happened a week earlier when Preddy stopped his car observing immigration and ICE enforcement agents. Preddy told a source that he had been tackled by a number of agents. One leaned in on him and it caused his rib to be broken. You'd think maybe that would be enough of an indication to say, maybe I shouldn't get so close. Maybe I shouldn't insert myself into these violent situations. Maybe I should respect law enforcement. But no, unfortunately, that didn't happen. And now the nation has to sort it out. Choices. And I believe he made bad choices. Doesn't mean he deserved to die. I'm not saying that at all. But it was avoidable. I am certainly saying that. It was avoidable. Meanwhile, let's talk about some of these folks that have been arrested. I talked about a couple of them. I'm going to go back through the list now. Justin Neal Shelton was arrested for obstructing a legal process in 2000, and this was just recently, but back in 2007, he pled guilty to a charge of first-degree aggravated robbery after prosecutors say he beat up a pregnant woman. Well, he and another guy were trying to steal her car. When the woman asked Shelton and the other person to leave, they knocked her to the ground, kept kicking her, hit her with a bottle. Shelton was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Nice guy. In October 2020, Shelton, same guy, convicted of possessing a firearm after committing a violent crime. So he has quite a rap sheet. Nice guy, right? Kind of guy you want as your neighbor. Just ordinary folks in Minneapolis, Minnesota. These are the folks. These are the folks the Democrats are defending today. Abraham Nelson Coleman, 45, arrested on charge of theft, felony theft, damage to property, theft. Nice guy. Jalen Marie Rodriguez, arrested on charges of riot. According to her LinkedIn, Rodriguez is a student at the University of Minnesota Law School. While at Macalester College, where she got her BA in sociology, she was a cultural programming coordinator for the Latinx Student Union. Nobody uses the term Latinx. Look, I live with a whole bunch of Puerto Rican people. That's their ancestry. I live with a whole bunch of Hispanic people. They think Latinx is the dumbest thing the left ever came up with, just for the record.
Latinx.
Latinx. There you go, Latinx. Raina Michelle Alston, arrested on charges of riot. A resident of Minneapolis wrote, "Disrupt, disturb, resist" on her Instagram biography. She promotes nationwide shutdowns. No work, no school, no shopping. Good luck with that. Nobody. It's happening in Minneapolis. It's not happening in Detroit. It's not happening in Grand Rapids. It's not happening in Cleveland or Columbus or Nashville or anywhere in Florida. Josephine J. Guilbeault. Let's see. She was charged with rioting. Escorted out of a U.S. Senate hearing in September after she allegedly disrupted the hearing and accused committee members of being complicit in genocide in Israel. Professional protesters. Freya Evison, arrested on charges of riot. She's a birth assistant and clinic nurse at the Minnesota Birth Center. Kashmir Hamilton Grunow, 19, arrested on charges of rioting. He attends Morehouse College, where he played football. I mean, you can see where that guy might be a threat. John Lyndall Gribble, he was 40, charges of riot. Previously, Gribble had been convicted of the following crimes: fourth-degree driving while intoxicated, operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol. He looks like a nice guy. I love the throat tattoos. One of my personal favorites. Let's see, and the list goes on. You've got Bailey Schlosser arrested for riot, Sarah Workman arrested for riot, Oliver Kilgore Jones arrested for riot, Megan Larson arrested for riot. The list just goes on and on and on. And then there's this guy, Kyle Wagner. Throat tattoos, again, love those. Very classy. I mean, nothing says, "Hey, let's go meet your mom," like a throat tattoo, right? In fact, Anthony, I think you should get one before you ever get married. Get a throat tattoo.
It'll say Steve Gruber Show.
There you go. Now that's classy.
Yeah.
You see, that is a ring of like, whoa.
Steve, I already told you, if you have a Steve Gruber Show brand made, I'll get branded on air.
As long as I get to do it.
No.
Kyle
So
Wagner.
you can inflict more pain?
Exactly. Kyle Wagner called for direct action. He called for people to get armed and go after federal agents, and now he says he's on the run. Gee, I wonder why. You mean getting online and saying it's ready in time to kill police officers is a crime? Yeah, probably in most states. Just wanted you to know who you're dealing with. I'm dealing with Anthony. They're dealing with something far worse, all right? These are not ordinary Minnesota folks going out there with their signs and chanting. These are anarchists, agitators, professional disruptors, people that want the chaos and are perfectly fine with Alex Preddy and Renee Good being killed because they become martyrs. They're okay with it. They don't care. Sad but true. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back to it. Look, condolences. I mentioned this at the top, but I'll say it again. Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced the loss of her father yesterday. Said that they lost her beloved father. My father passed away last night. He held a lot of impressive positions in his long life. This was posted on social media, by the way. He led major nonprofits, sat on statewide boards, and served in the cabinet of one of my predecessors, Governor Milliken. But for me, he was just Dad. Look, I have a lot of disagreements with Gretchen Whitmer and different Democrats, but I'll take a pause here and say sorry for your loss. Condolences to you and your family. Richard Whitmer was 85 years old. Whitmer also mentioned how he cheered her on in politics. He was the one who suggested I consider public service. As a student at Michigan State University who dreamt of a life in sports broadcasting, he was the one that told me to check out an internship at the Capitol to see how state government really worked. I haven't looked back since. She said her father was a proud Michigander, served in various capacities in state government, including as Commerce Secretary for Governor Bill Milliken. Then joined Blue Cross Blue Shield, rising to become the CEO. He helmed the turnaround of the state's largest insurer after a tough time for the company. He was my best friend, most trusted counselor, and next-door neighbor until I moved to the governor's residence. I'm grateful for the time we got to spend together, for the things he taught me, and the stories I'll carry with me forever. Nice tribute from the governor to her father. And so, again, condolences. On the world stage today, Donald Trump pressuring Iran to come to the table as massive U.S. fleets head that way, an armada, really. President Donald Trump urging Iran to come to the table as the U.S. deploys a massive armada. It's happening today. Here's what he wrote on Truth Social. A massive armada heading to Iran. It's moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. It is a larger fleet headed by the great aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln, larger than that sent to Venezuela. Like Venezuela, it is ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with speed and violence if necessary. Hopefully, Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. No nuclear weapons. One that is good for all parties. Time is running out. It is truly of the essence. As I told Iran once before, make a deal. They didn't. And there was Operation Midnight Hammer, a major destruction of Iran. The next attack will be far worse. Don't make that happen again. Donald Trump drawing a line in the sand. And unlike Barack Obama and others, when Donald Trump says it, listen, he means it. If you haven't figured that out by now, I don't know what to tell you. And I don't know what our play in Iran would be, because it seems to be fueled by the uprising there in the streets. Millions of Iranians protesting. It's gone quiet, at least in media to some extent, because everything there has been shut down. Social media has been shut down. The internet has been shut down. Getting information out of Iran right now, very difficult. Similar things going on in China right now, by the way. We've talked about this. President Xi, the dictator, purging many of the top military leaders again as he continues to try to consolidate power, but his hold on power tenuous, according to the experts we've had on this program, including Gordon Chang. We don't actually know what's happening in China right now. We're not clear what's happening in Iran. At least I'm not. I'm hoping our military is. I hope our intelligence communities are on the ball. Wouldn't it be nice to have a reformer come into China? The problem with that hope is that you get somebody worse. You trade the devil you know for the devil you don't. It could be somebody worse, which is why Donald Trump's making all these moves in the Western Hemisphere to secure our backyard and our front yard, whether it's Venezuela or Greenland. I support these maneuvers. Taking Maduro out of Venezuela was the right thing to do. It is the hub of criminal activity in the Western Hemisphere, whether it's drug cartels, Mexico has more, but there was a huge organization of drug cartels running in and out of Venezuela, influence from China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba. You have terrorist elements in there from ISIS and Tren de Aragua. You have bad actors all over Venezuela because it's completely corrupt. At least it has been. The current president, the former vice president, kind of posturing now that they don't need direction from Washington. Well, again, you ignore Donald Trump at your own peril. You do. And I would warn anybody who ignores Donald Trump's comments does so at their own peril. Did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity, and cyber criminals target it every single day with a growing scam that the FBI calls house stealing? House alarms, doorbell cameras, deadbolts. Doesn't work against these folks because they're not after your stuff. They're after the equity you've built in your home. If your title isn't being monitored, scammers can transfer the title of your home into their name using documents they file at the county, then take out loans against it or even sell it back away from you when you're not looking. And the scary part is you don't even know this until foreclosure notices start hitting your mailbox. By then, the damage is done. The best way to protect your equity is with triple lock protection from our friends at Home Title Lock. Triple lock protection, 24/7 monitoring, alerts of any changes, and God forbid, if the worst does happen, restoration services, no cost out of pocket. You can check on your home's title today and make sure you're not a victim. Use promo code Gruber at HomeTitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You also get free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts of any change, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend $1 million to fix it. Go to HomeTitleLock.com now. Use the promo code Gruber. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. I'll be right back. All right, a setback for Democrats from a judge who voided redistricting in Virginia. A Virginia Circuit Court judge has struck down a General Assembly-approved redistricting amendment, ruling that lawmakers overstepped their authority during a 2024 special legislative session, violated constitutional requirements tied to elections and voter notice. In a sweeping ruling issued yesterday, Tazewell County Circuit Court Judge Jack Hurley invalidated actions taken to advance the proposed constitutional amendment, blocking it from moving forward and barring it from being submitted to voters. I guess gerrymandering is all done with these folks. There you have it. Lawsuit focused on whether lawmakers could take up a redistricting-related constitutional amendment during a special session initially convened to address budget matters. He said, no, you can't do that. Well, there you have it. There you have it. All right, so look, cold weather is not going anywhere. This cold snap we're in across the upper Midwest, another big storm potentially moving into the eastern seaboard. So for places like Charlotte, North Carolina, buckle up, Buttercup, because you're about to get a pile of snow again. Virginia, South Carolina, they're all going to get snow, a lot of it apparently. Currently here at the studio, it's 11 degrees. And looking at the forecast, this is interesting. The low temperature will be in the single digits for days to come, possibly below zero. There is not a day between now and the 11th of February that the temperature will even get close to 30 degrees. The highest temperature in the next several days, 27 degrees, according to the extended forecast. What does that mean? It means the Great Lakes will exceed their average ice cover. Average ice cover for the Great Lakes, 52% over the last 50 years. They're at about 44% today. They will exceed that. Mark my words. And every year it's the same. Oh, the Great Lakes are not going to have much ice this year. Really? And then you get something like this, and you get a pile of ice, as we've had a number of times in the last few years alone. So there you have it. The results, the observed results, far more important than the predictions every single time. I'll take a break and be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Sit tight. My next guest, a regular on the program as of late, State Representative Parker Fairbairns. There's the 107th House District, which, by the way, encompasses my northern compound. Parker, welcome back to the program.
Glad to be back. We love your northern compound. Is
Yeah,
that Boyne City?
Yeah, we're right there in that neighborhood, not too far from Boyne Mountain. You got it. And we love it up there. Lots of snow this year, Parker. I mean, Lots of snow. The western U.S. isn't getting much. We're getting snow again today here. It's snowing all over Michigan. It's great for the ski resorts, for the snowmobilers, and for the ice fishermen if you're that brave. I mean, they love it, don't they?
They do. You look at it. I'm going snowmobiling this weekend, and I'm beside myself. It's going to be great, but a little cold.
Yeah. The grooming machines are these massive machines that groom the trails, and boy, are those cool. So if you're a snowmobiler or not a snowmobiler and would like to try, this is your year without question. Good stuff up there. Let's talk about this. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. It accounts for 40% of the state budget, $35 billion, give or take a little bit there. And you say if they don't get their act together, they're going to screw this deal up. Donald Trump just put out $50 billion for rural hospitals and rural health care. What's the problem? Why would they have a problem with this?
You know, I think the real issue is we have a Department of Health and Human Services that is very bad for this state. Their application that they made to the feds was flawed, and we know it was flawed simply because in the application they said the Detroit and Wayne and Oakland counties were rural. So we're giving this application to the feds, and we're wondering why we're receiving less money than states like Ohio and Iowa. I mean, Michigan received $173 million of this $50 billion, and states like Ohio and Iowa are getting well over $200 million. We're a top 10 rural state in the country.
Yeah, that number seems awfully small, Parker. I mean, out of $50 billion, you would think split it 50 ways. We'll take $1 billion or $500 million. Why 173? Why such $173 million is a lot of money, but it's paltry in comparison to what other folks are getting, as you just pointed out. Why are we getting so little?
Well, this is specifically for those rural dollars, and that's why they're so crucial to Northern Michigan and the UP, Steve. I mean, those dollars would go a long way with our hospitals and clinics up here. And for a county like Wayne that has the highest population in Michigan to even claim they're partially rural is totally ridiculous.
So what do you do about it? What's the recourse?
I mean, so the legislature, we have oversight of these departments. We're going to be running hard shot on these guys and calling them out for these errors. I mean, you look, the feds and Donald Trump wanted to help rural hospitals and rural healthcare, people getting access to rural healthcare. And we just totally screwed the process up here in Michigan by allowing Wayne to apply and allowing Detroit and Oakland County, the biggest, most populated areas of Michigan.
So I'm still back. I'm still hung up on this number. Why did we only get $173 million? It's not because of Oakland, Wayne, and Detroit. Why was our number so small? Look, Donald Trump, he and I have talked about this on a number of occasions. He has always felt, and still does, that Michigan is ground zero for political success, whether it's the governor's open seat or the Senate seat that's up for grabs right now, or for presidential elections. He has always considered Michigan to be the bellwether of how the rest of the country is going to go. And you know what? He's proven to be right time and time again. So why would we get such a small number compared to Ohio and other states?
Well, so we have these officials here in MDHHS that put forward a flawed application to the feds. When the feds looked at that, it's not Donald Trump looking at that, but it's people within HHS at the federal level looking at this. And when they see that we're putting applications in for these very well-populated areas, I mean, you can live in Wayne County and drive 20 minutes in any direction and have access to world-class health care. You go up into Northern Michigan and the UP, you're anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to good health care. And I think of my wife and I right now, we're expecting a baby, our first in May. In the UP, there's areas where you have to travel an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to these birthing centers. I mean,
that's exactly right. And the reason for that is this. Labor and delivery, when these hospitals hit financial problems and strain, one of the first departments eliminated is labor and delivery. You know, there's a reason for that. It's financial. there are reasons for it. But if you've got to go 2 hours and your water breaks, you might be delivering your baby in the car on the way to the hospital, right? I mean, that's a real consideration.
Yep, we've seen movies like that where that happens. It's not a good thing.
No, it's not a good thing. Let me ask you, while we're on the Department of Health and Human Services, $35 billion. We have seen the fraud in Minnesota. And look, I would be naive not to believe that we have levels of fraud in Michigan that are also detrimental to the taxpayers all over this state because people are taking money they're not entitled to, lining their own pockets. What is your concern over fraud at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services?
I mean, we have to look at this stuff with a microscope, Steve, and you look at the decades that this has been able to happen here in Michigan, where these departments go unchecked. Speaker Hall created this really wonderful oversight department, but committee, and they've been hammering in on waste, fraud, and abuse. And Speaker Hall, we've made this a top priority. So we cut $1 billion worth of waste, fraud, and abuse last budget. We were the only state in the country that actually reduced their overall budget year over year, which is pretty much, frankly, incredible. You look at other states that have trifectas with Republicans and their states' budgets were still growing. So for us to get that win was very huge, but these departments have gotten so bloated with COVID dollars and whatnot, and now they're expecting those dollars to be there after they've dried up. We're saying no, those dollars are not going to be there anymore. You guys are going to have to tighten your belt and start really finding what's necessary and what's not.
Yeah, very difficult to do that. It's a concern, and we're digging into a couple of leads that we have here. I think we're going to find fraud here in Michigan, maybe not on the scale of Minnesota, but maybe. And look, it's $35 billion. It's the biggest department in the state, Health and Human Services. And so it's ripe with the opportunity for people to make that the mark. Anyhow, last word to you.
I'm with you on this, Steve. I mean, we need to root out this waste, fraud, and abuse. We did it last budget. We're going to continue to do it this year. It is an election year, but we're going to continue to make tough choices. But what's best for the Michigan taxpayer, we're going to continue to do that and fight on that path.
Parker, always good to see you. I appreciate what you're doing up there. And hopefully we can get this sorted out and help the places that really need it most, and that is rural health care. Sir, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. Look, they play games with the money. When you got giant pots of money, the politicians play games. Don't play games with people's health. Not in the UP, not in northern Michigan, not in places that need it most. When we come back, Ivy will be here. I know you love that. I'll be right back. You know, it's important to note that my beautiful wife, raised in Florida primarily, but also in places like Mississippi and California, not a lot of snow in those places, generally speaking, loves winter. It's a good thing this year that she loves winter because it's snowing again. Good morning, Ivy.
Good morning. Yeah, isn't there another big snowstorm coming through?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get hit by it, but places like Charlotte and Nashville and other places on the eastern seaboard could get pounded with a lot more snow. Greenville, South Carolina, other places like that. Yeah, they're not used to this. Snow.
Well, I did hear Dr. Peter McCall this morning talking about how he hasn't left his home for 5 days.
And he's in Texas.
Yeah, he's in Texas.
Yeah.
You know, I actually have a video. I pulled this up, Anthony, of the ice accumulation on the Hudson River. And if you can see it there, it's, you know, the boats and ferries have to navigate these big ice blocks. They're certainly not used to that either with the very frigid temperatures in the Northeast.
Well, when Washington crossed the Delaware on Christmas Day, there was a lot of ice in the river. So
there you go.
You know, these things happen. And again, I was talking here just moments ago, maybe you heard me, about Great Lakes ice cover headed for 50%. The average over the last 50 years, 52%. But I just looked at the forecast for Duluth, Minnesota, Marquette, Michigan, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Sub-zero lows, highs in the single digits or low teens. The ice buildup is coming dramatically over the next week or two still. We're going to far exceed. I'll just tell you right now, we are going to exceed Great Lakes ice cover. And Ivy, if you want to go ice fishing, this is your year. Lake Erie's been frozen solid for a couple of weeks now. Walleye capital of the world. Well, you know, I don't know if I can drink that much, but you know.
Well, I can tell you this. Maybe we've been training because we generally ice plunge 3 to 4 days a week. And even yesterday, actually, we did the full body submersion that I had never done before.
Fun.
And it was actually quite, it was nice. It was rejuvenating.
Shocking might be another word. But you do not want to do an ice plunge on the lakes. I saw another tragic story from over the weekend.
Well, they're just a lot colder than what an ice plunge is. Like 45-degree temperature is probably far colder than that in the Great Lakes. So,
but be careful.
Yes.
Thin ice takes too many lives.
Yes.
Every year, 3 brothers died in a story
scary.
I saw
you know,
over the weekend.
I heard you talking about Al Gore this morning, you know, about his climate change disruption, explains everything, and his predictions were just so wrong in terms of we're not going to have any more, you know, glaciers, and they were going to be completely gone.
And ice-free in the Arctic.
Glacier National Park wasn't going to exist.
Right. Well, the Jackson Glacier is still there in Glacier National Park. And by the way, 20 years of being completely wrong. It was released in 2006. He predicted ice-free winters. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez telling the world would end in 12 years because of burning fossil fuels. Well, that hasn't happened.
It's just a way to lie and manipulate people and create fears, and then people live in fear, and then I think these sorts of folks think that they can control others.
They do. Germany is deindustrializing. Germany has destroyed itself, its economy, and its future by getting rid of tremendous amounts of fossil fuel fired facilities for electricity, for example. They went back and turned down all the coal-fired power plants they still had in January 2023 when it was extremely cold. They kept them, but these policies have destroyed the ability for the Western civilization nations, many of them not ours, because we're done with that, to produce anything.
Right.
I mean, it's just a
electricity
fool's
has
errand.
to be, you know, completely outrageously expensive.
Yeah.
And speaking of completely outrageously expensive, Doge is still continuing to do its work.
Yeah.
It posted a few days ago. Over the last 5 days, agencies terminated and descoped 42 wasteful contracts with a ceiling value of $1.5 billion and a savings of $269 million, including a $1.2 million Millennium Challenge Corp DEI professional services contract for a DCO Gender and Social Inclusion Director. $1.2 million this person was getting paid. But, you know, as Doge continues and we continue to find this waste, fraud, and abuse, and we pull it back, think about it, you know, over the next several years, how much savings that means for the American people and what that could also mean for the deficit in our country. There's just so much waste going on.
Intentional.
And I think it's great that we're continuing to find this and reverse this. And you actually printed this story for me. HUD orders citizenship verification after audit reveals ineligible tenants in taxpayer-funded housing.
Hundreds of thousands of them.
200,000 cases were flagged.
Right. And that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Again, as they say, it's the tip of the iceberg.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there were nearly 225,000 deceased tenants and nearly 6,000 ineligible non-American tenants across federally funded housing programs. So again, it's just, hey, the more that we continue to find this, the more money gets to people that need it, one, and a tremendous amount of money that gets saved.
Right.
You know,
because if you don't squander the
God.
money, it goes to the children and the families that actually need the help.
Absolutely.
In tough times. It doesn't go to line the pockets of NGOs and politicians and lobbyists who enrich themselves at the expense of their fellow citizens.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Well, I also remind people, you know, as I saw this video yesterday, it was terrifying, of a skier in China was mauled by a snow leopard.
Oh my gosh, I saw that.
And the woman gets within 10 feet of the snow leopard and the snow leopard attacks her. It's like, guys, do you recall that wild is in the name wildlife? You don't want to do this. I mean, we hear about this every year. We are huge fans of going to national parks.
But
we've taken
Yellowstone,
our children to many national parks.
Yeah.
And we always see people
Yeah.
who are just marching towards the wildlife.
Yeah. Marching towards the buffalo. Well, they look dumb and tame. No.
And then the next minute they're mauled or dead or trampled.
Yeah.
Or
Don't do that. Wild
cautionary
life.
tale. Let's let the wildlife be wild.
Ivy did smell the breath of a buffalo once, but it was just had its head in the car.
Oh, thank you for that,
I know.
Steve.
Love you, Ivy.
I love you too.
It was a great day. It was.
It was.
Final thoughts after this. All right, big day here as we watch that armada floating at Iran. What's going to happen? Donald Trump has warned the Iranians no nuclear weapons. I don't know what he is alluding to. We devastated their nuclear capabilities here a few months ago, as you know, with that massive bombing run that took 40 hours and thousands of people and hundreds of aircraft. We also know the Iranian regime is murdering its own citizens at a clip that is just reprehensible. And of course, the United Nations does nothing. What they do best, nothing. They pontificate and do nothing. The United Nations is a failure. That's why this board of peace that Donald Trump has put together is potentially more impactful and more significant than the United Nations has ever been. Has the United Nations ever stopped any war ever? And yet we give piles of money to these people, to their NGOs, to their little figureheads, to their lobbyists, to their representatives. Squander all this money and for nothing in return. There are no results of significance that matter. Well, I hope the Iranians are paying attention, because if they haven't figured it out, Donald Trump does not play. Thing one. Thing two, Tom Homan in Minneapolis. Change of leadership. Some Republicans, or pseudo-Republicans like Tom Tillis and Lisa Murkowski, calling for Kristi Noem to be relieved of her duty as the Secretary of Homeland Security. Donald Trump says that's not going to happen. I have complete faith in the work that she's doing. But it's all coming down to a possible government shutdown because the Democrats want to defund the police. The police in this case are federal agencies and federal officers taking the worst of the worst out of this country. Apparently, they're willing to shut down the government over an argument of defunding the police. How does that sell politically? We'll keep an eye on all of it. Fight the good fight and keep the faith. God bless America, my friends. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. And remember, only you can save America.